November 5th, 1975. 6:15 p.m. 7 men are driving along a dirt road in the middle of the forest. They've worked all day chopping wood. They're tired and ready to go home. Then one of them sees something between the trees. A golden glow. When they round the bend, there it is, floating, 15 feet off the ground. A disc-shaped object.
Shiny.
Emitting a high-pitched sound, like a constant beeping. Travis Walton, 22, does something that none of his classmates forget. He gets off the truck and walks towards the object. What happens in the next 5 seconds sparks a controversy that has lasted 50 years. What happens in the next 5 days defies rational explanation. And what we discovered when we dug deeper into this case is that nothing is what it seems. Welcome. I'm Name, and this is Channel Name. On this channel, we explore the most intriguing, controversial, and well-documented cases of the paranormal and the unexplained. But not with sensationalism, but with rigor. Today we're going to dive into one of the most studied, debated, and divisive cases in the history of ufology, the Travis Walton case. We're not talking about lights in the sky seen by a single person. We're not talking about third-hand stories or urban legends. We're talking about 7 witnesses. A massive police search involving helicopters, sniffer dogs, and specialized equipment. Polygraph tests. A 5-day disappearance that made national news. And we're talking about a man who, 50 years later, is still maintaining the same story, that he was taken aboard an alien spacecraft. For some, this is the best documented alien abduction case in history. Definitive proof that we are not alone. For others, it is one of the most elaborate and successful hoaxes ever perpetrated. The truth is, after investigating this case for weeks, reviewing hundreds of pages of documents, testimony, skeptical analysis, and official reports, I can tell you one thing with certainty. There are no easy answers. But there's a fascinating story. One that deserves to be told in full, without bias, with all the disturbing details that make it so difficult to explain in any way. So buckle up because we're going deep. To understand this case, we first need to understand when and where it occurred. It's 1975. The United States has just emerged from Vietnam. The Watergate scandal ended just a year earlier, leaving millions of Americans distrustful of their own institutions. There's an energy crisis, an economic recession. The country is restless. And 2 weeks before our incident, on October 20th, 1975, NBC aired a movie called The UFO Incident. It's about Betty and Barney Hill, a couple who claimed to have been abducted by aliens years before. Millions of people watched it that night. Among them, curiously, 2 men in Arizona, Mike Rogers and Travis Walton. But we'll get to that. Geographically, we're in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest in northeastern Arizona. It's a remote, mountainous area with giant ponderosa pines that stretch for miles. The elevation here is high, over 7,000 feet. In November, when it gets dark, it's cold. Temperatures drop near freezing. The closest towns are Heber and Snowflake.
Small.
Conservative. Snowflake is predominantly Mormon, a close-knit, religious community where this kind of thing just doesn't happen. It's important to understand this. These aren't California hippies in a New Age commune. They aren't ufologists seeking contact. They're lumberjacks. Tough, hard-working guys, most with barely a high school education, who make a living with their hands in one of the toughest jobs in America. And on November 5th, 1975, 7 of these men will experience something that will change their lives forever. But before we get to that night, we need to get to know them. Travis Walton, 22 years old in 1975. The son of a lumberjack who died when Travis was young, he grew up in the woods of northern Arizona. He's an impulsive guy, according to those who know him. He has a quick temper, but he's also curious and a dreamer. There's something else about Travis that's important. He, his older brother Dwayne, and his mother are UFO enthusiasts. They've read books on the subject.
They talk about it.
According to skeptical researcher Philip Klass, Travis even told his mother before the incident, "Don't worry if I'm abducted by aliens someday. I'll come back safe and sound." Is that significant? Perhaps. Or perhaps he's just a young man with an active imagination. Oh, and there's another detail. In 1971, Travis was arrested along with another man for burglary and check forgery. He pleaded guilty. He has a criminal record. Then there's Mike Rogers, the crew chief, 28 years old. Mike is the contractor. He has an agreement with the U.S. Forest Service to clear a specific area of the forest. It's hard work with a strict deadline and financial penalties if not completed on time. This is where things get interesting. On October 20th, 1975, the same night they saw the abduction movie on television, Mike Rogers sent a letter to the Forest Service. Acknowledge in writing that the work is seriously delayed, that they probably won't be able to complete it by the deadline. Remember that detail. The other 5 men on the crew are Ken Peterson, John Gillette, Steve Pierce, Alan Dallas, and Dwayne Smith. Most are in their 20s. Dallas is older, has a few minor run-ins with the law on his record. But for the most part, they're just regular workers. Regular guys. Tracy Torme, the screenwriter who later investigated this case for the film Fire in the Sky, interviewed them all more than 10 years after the incident. His assessment was fascinating. He said that, apart from Rogers and Walton, the other guys were extremely unimaginative, semi-literate. But their stories matched perfectly, in minute details, more than a decade later. So, those are our protagonists. 7 men in a truck, driving home after a long day at work. It's time to talk about what you saw. Act 1. The sighting. November 5th, 1975. Approximately 6:10 p.m. It's already dark. Mike Rogers' 7-person crew cab truck rolls slowly along a bulldozed dirt road that winds through the pines. The men are tired. It's been a long day. They just want to get home. Travis Walton is sitting in the front passenger seat, right side. And then someone sees it. A golden glow between the trees.
Bright.
Out of place. Mike Rogers rounds a right curve, and suddenly, there it is. A structural object. Shaped like 2 cake pans placed edge to edge, or 2 shallow bowls stacked on top of each other. It's floating, about 15 feet off the ground, about 90 feet away from the truck. The object measures approximately 20 feet in diameter and 10 feet thick. It is golden in color, metallic and shiny. And it's making a sound. A steady, high-pitched, piercing beep. All 7 men see it. All of them. Simultaneously. Mike Rogers stops the truck. Act 2. Travis's decision. Now, this is where versions start to matter. According to the 6 witnesses who stayed in the truck, this is what happened. Travis Walton opens the passenger door. He gets out of the truck. The other men shout at him to be careful, to come back. But Travis doesn't listen, or he doesn't care. Walk towards the object. According to witnesses, Travis stops beneath the object, looking up. The angle of elevation is about 60 degrees from his position. The beeping gets louder. Travis takes a couple of steps back, as if suddenly realizing this is a bad idea, that he needs to get away. Act 3. The lightning. Ray of light emerges. Blue-green. Intense. He hits Travis in the chest and head. He lifts him off the ground, arms outstretched, and throws him backward like a rag doll. The 6 men in the truck panic. Act 4. The flight. Mike Rogers restarts the engine. He steps on the accelerator. The truck shoots out of the clearing, moving as fast as possible along the uneven road. The men are terrified. Some are screaming. They're convinced they are all going to die. But after a quarter of a mile, Rogers brakes. The 6 look back, and they see a light rising from the ground, from the area where they left Travis. The light shoots northeast.
Fast.
And disappears. Silence. Rogers turns the truck around. They head back to the clearing. For the next 15 minutes, they search for Travis.
They walk around the area.
They shout his name. Nothing. Travis Walton has disappeared. Pause. Dark music transition. Act 5. The report to the police. Mike Rogers makes a decision. They drive to Heber, the nearest town. Along the way, they debate what they're going to say. Because who's going to believe them? How do you tell the police that your friend was hit by a beam of light from a flying saucer and disappeared? But they can't come up with another story that makes sense. So they decide to tell the truth. They arrive at the Navajo County Sheriff's Office and report the missing person. And as expected, initially, they don't believe them. Representative Chuck Ellison admitted years later that his first thought was, this is a cover-up. Maybe there was a fight that went wrong in the woods. Maybe one of these guys killed Travis Walton. It is considered a homicide investigation. But Rogers and his crew insist. This is what we saw. This is what happened. Act 6. The Quest. At dawn on November 6th, a massive search begins. Arizona Department of Public Safety bloodhounds. German shepherds from local law enforcement agencies. Specialized trackers. In the air, Civil Air Patrol planes fly systematic patterns over the mountainous desert. They search for days. They find nothing. No sign of Travis Walton. No footprints leading him away from the clearing. No evidence of a struggle. Nothing. It's like it's evaporated. Meanwhile, the story hits the national media. Forest worker disappears after alleged UFO encounter. Reporters descend on Snowflake and Heber. Travis's family is harassed. The other 6 men are questioned repeatedly. And this is where things get really interesting. On November 10th, 1975, 5 days after the disappearance, the 6 members of the gang volunteered to take polygraph tests. It's important to understand. At this point, Travis is still missing. Police suspect murder. So the polygraph questions are designed for that. The examiner is C. Gilson of the Arizona Department of Public Safety. He is considered one of the state's top polygraph operators. He asks for relevant questions. 3 on whether Travis was seriously injured or killed by any of them. And a question added at the last minute. Were you telling the truth about actually seeing a UFO last Wednesday when Travis Walton disappeared? The 6 men respond. No to the first 3 questions. Yes to the 4th. Results. 5 are judged to be truthful. The 6th, Alan Dallas, is unfinished, probably due to extreme nervousness. In his official report, Gilson writes, polygraph examinations prove that these 5 men saw an object they believed to be a UFO and that Travis Walton was not injured or killed by any of these men. This is huge, because now the police are in a difficult position. They can't charge these men with murder. The polygraphs say they're telling the truth. So, where's Travis Walton? The answer comes the following morning. Shortly after midnight on November 11th, the phone rings at Travis's sister's house. It's a collect call. On the other end of the line, a weak, barely recognizable voice. It's me. Come and get me. It's Travis. It's in a phone booth in Heber, the local gas station. The family runs over and finds him collapsed inside the cabin. He is emaciated,
Pale. Weak.
dehydrated. He has several days' worth of beard growth. But he's alive. Travis is confused and disoriented. He's convinced it's only been a few hours since the incident. When they tell him it's been 5 days, he doesn't believe it. His brother Dwayne immediately takes him to a hospital in Phoenix to be examined. The doctor who examines him is Dr. Howard Kandell.
Perform a complete physical exam.
Blood tests. Look for drugs, trauma, anything that might explain what happened. The results are strange. Travis has lost weight. He has a small puncture mark on his arm, consistent with an intravenous needle. But he has no bruises. No broken bones. Nothing you'd expect from someone who is thrown backward by an unknown force. And his blood chemistry doesn't match that of someone who's been without food for 5 days. The doctors are baffled. But Travis is back. That's what matters. Except, now he needs to explain where he was. This is what Travis Walton says happened to him. He regains consciousness in what he initially believes to be a hospital. He's lying on a table or a stretcher. There's pain. A lot of pain. As your eyes adjust to the light, you look around and sees beings. He describes them as almost human-like, but with disturbing differences. Completely hairless. Extremely white, almost translucent skin. Large, dark eyes. They wear reddish-brown overalls. Travis panics. He sits up violently. The beings retreat. He searches for something, anything, to defend himself. He finds an object resembling a glass tube on the table. He grabs it and brandishes it like a weapon. The beings leave the room. Travis is alone. He leaves the room, looking for an exit. The hallways are curved, illuminated by a soft, diffuse light that seems to come from the walls themselves. Enter another room. This one is different. There's a pilot-style chair in the center. Panels around it with controls that seem to respond to touch, displaying light patterns. Travis touches one of the controls. The walls become transparent. Or so it seems. Because now he can see space. Stars everywhere. But no planet. No sun. No point of reference. Some distance from this solar system, Travis says. That's what I thought at the time. Then, another being enters the room. This one is different. More human. In fact, he looks completely human, except he's wearing something resembling a transparent helmet. The creature doesn't speak. It simply gestures for you to follow it. Travis is led through more corridors. They enter another area. There are more of these humanoid beings here. They take him to a table. They place something over his face, like a mask. And Travis loses consciousness again. The next thing he remembers is lying on the asphalt of a road, looking up as a bright light, like a metallic mirror, moves away above him. He gets up. He runs. He eventually finds the phone booth. Of the approximately 133 hours he was missing, Travis only consciously remembers 2 or 3 hours. The rest is a void. That's the story of Travis Walton. And now, it's time to ask the inevitable question. It's true? Very well. So far, we've presented the facts as they were reported. Now we need to analyze them. And to do this fairly, we're going to present both sides. The arguments of those who believe this was a real alien abduction, and the arguments of those who believe it was an elaborate hoax. Because here's the thing. Both sides have valid points. Let's start with the believer's perspective. Theory 1. Real alien abduction. Argument number 1. Multiple witnesses who passed polygraphs. We're not talking about a single person with a fantastic story. We're talking about 6 men who witnessed the same event, reported the same details, and 5 of them passed polygraph tests administered by a top-notch examiner. Alan Dallas, the 6th, was inconclusive, not deceptive. Nerves may have simply affected the results. Argument number 2. Long-term consistency. These men have been interviewed dozens of times over 50 years. Their stories remain unchanged. The details match. Tracy Torme, the screenwriter who interviewed them for the film, noted that these weren't sophisticated types. Extremely unimaginative, he said. Not the kind of people who could maintain an elaborate hoax for decades. Argument number 3. The real disappearance. Travis Walton was genuinely missing for 5 full days. A massive search involving sniffer dogs, helicopters, and specialized equipment found no trace of him. If it was a hoax, where was it? Who hid it? And remember, this is 1975 in a small, closed community. It's very difficult to hide someone without anyone knowing. Argument number 4. Physical and medical anomalies. When Travis came back, he had lost weight, was dehydrated, and had that puncture mark on his arm. But here's the strange thing. Her blood chemistry didn't match that of someone who had gone without food for 5 days. The doctors couldn't explain it. And he didn't have the injuries you'd expect from someone struck by violent force. Plot number 5. Anomalies on the site. The area where the incident occurred showed unusual patterns of soil compression and electromagnetic variations in soil samples. And in 2014, nearly 40 years later, researchers discovered that tree stumps around the site showed rapid directional growth. Growth rings were wider on the side facing where the craft had been hovering. Radiation? Some kind of energy emitted by the object? We don't know, but it's strange. Argument number 6. The 1993 Polygraph. Years later, in 1993, Travis took a polygraph examination using modern computerized technology, a system validated by the University of Utah. Their scores were +34 and +26. Anything above +6 is considered truthful. The probability that he was telling the truth, according to the computer analysis, was 96%. So, those are the arguments in favor. Impressive, aren't they? But wait, because skeptics have an answer for all this. And some of the evidence is devastating. Theory 2. Deliberate deception. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The failed polygraph that was hidden. On November 15, 1975, just 4 days after Travis reappeared, he took a polygraph exam. This examination was arranged by APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, and paid for by the National Enquirer, the tabloid that was covering the story. The examiner was Jack McCarthy, one of the leading polygraph operators in Arizona. Pause. Travis failed that test. In his written report to the National Enquirer, McCarthy concluded that Travis was attempting to perpetrate a UFO hoax and that he has not been in any spacecraft. The report also noted that Travis had deliberately attempted to distort his breathing pattern, a classic attempt to fool the polygraph. Now, here's the really problematic part. That exam was kept secret. The National Enquirer paid for it. They have a receipt dated January 14, 1976. But they never published it. APRO, the organization that arranged the exam, published a detailed bulletin in November 1975 covering all events up to November 16th. They didn't mention the failed polygraph at all. Why would they hide that? If they truly believe Travis is telling the truth, why hide the evidence? Skeptical researcher Philip J. Klass eventually obtained these documents: Travis's signed consent statement, McCarthy's full report, and the National Enquirer's payment receipt. That evidence is real. It's documented. Counterpoint number 2. The financial motive. Recall, on October 20th, 1975, just 16 days before the incident, Mike Rogers wrote to the Forest Service admitting that work was seriously behind schedule. If he did not complete the contract on time, he faced severe financial penalties. But if an act of God occurred, something completely beyond their control, those penalties could be avoided. A UFO encounter that results in the disappearance of a crew member? That definitely qualifies. And then there's the National Enquirer, S prize, $100,000 for proof of extraterrestrial visitors. That's about $500,000 in today's money. Counterpoint number 3. The movie on television. On the night of October 20th, the same night Rogers sent that letter, Travis and Mike watched the UFO incident on NBC, a film about the abduction of Betty and Barney Hill. After the broadcast, according to multiple sources, Travis discussed the possibility of being abducted by aliens. So, 16 days later, he claims to have been abducted. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe inspiration. Counterpoint number 4. The behavior of the family. When Deputy Copeland informed Travis's mother of his disappearance at 1:30 a.m., her response was, "Well, that's how these things happen."
Calm.
No panic. No shock. As if I already knew. And during the 5 days Travis was missing, his brother Dwayne confessed to someone. He's not even missing. He knows where he is, and I know where he is. What does that mean? Counterpoint number 5. Criminal record. In 1971, Travis and Charles Rogers, Mike's brother, were arrested for burglary and check forgery. They pleaded guilty. Now, that doesn't mean Travis is lying about this. People can make mistakes when they're young and change. But it sets a precedent. Travis has engaged in deceptive activity before. Counterpoint number 6. The second polygraph was also problematic. In February 1976, APRO announced that Travis and Dwayne had passed a polygraph examination. Finally, right? Vindication. Except that test was performed by George Pfeiffer, a relatively inexperienced operator. Only 2 years of practice. And here's the most problematic part. Pfeiffer allowed Travis to dictate several of the questions he would be asked. When Pfeiffer's boss, Tom Ezell, reviewed the charts, he concluded that it was impossible to determine whether Travis was responding truthfully. Ezell wrote in a letter, "After reviewing this exam, I find it is not acceptable to me." So the approved polygraph that APRO advertised was actually unreliable according to the examiner's own supervisor. And then there's the 2021 bombshell. Mike Rogers' confession. On March 19, 2021, almost 46 years after the incident, Mike Rogers posted something on his Facebook page that shook this case to its foundations.
Wrote,
I, Michael H. Rogers, being of sound mind and rational being, hereby give notice that I am no longer to be considered a witness to the alleged abduction of Travis C. Walton on November 5, 1975. And then on April 30, 2021, Rogers made a phone call to producer Ryan Gordon. The call was recorded without Rogers' knowledge. On that call, Rogers said, "We were talking in the woods one day, Travis and I, about creating a UFO hoax. I don't know how the UFO got there, but I remember when I was driving the truck and he jumped out, it was all deliberate.
It was all a staged thing, okay?
He ran up there, and there was something about the UFO not being real, even though it looked real." That's a confession. The crew chief, the main witness, admitting that it was a staged thing. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. Because Rogers later retracted that confession. He reconciled with Travis. He issued a statement saying he was confused, angry, and didn't know what he was saying. And here's the strange thing. Even in that confession, Rogers says contradictory things. I don't know how the UFO got there. It looked real. If it was a hoax they perpetrated, why wouldn't Rogers know how the UFO got there? And what does "it seemed real even though it wasn't real" mean? It's a confession that explains nothing. So, what do we do with this? There are other theories worth mentioning. Fire Lookout Tower Theory. In 2021, skeptical researcher Robert Schaefer proposed a fascinating idea. Near the scene of the incident is a Forest Service fire lookout tower, the Gentry Tower, 70 feet tall, equipped with a generator, living space, a metal walkway, and a powerful spotlight. Schaefer's theory: Travis walked toward the tower, which was brightly lit above the treetops. An accomplice at the tower shone a spotlight on him, creating the illusion of a lightning bolt. Travis hid in the tower for 5 days. It's creative. But there are problems. Who was the accomplice? Why has that person never spoken in 50 years? And how do you explain the anomalies in the soil and trees at the actual incident site? Natural phenomenon. Some have suggested that they saw ball lightning or other atmospheric electromagnetic phenomenon. These phenomena exist and can be incredibly strange. But that doesn't explain the 5-day disappearance. Not at all. Collective hallucination. 7 people experiencing the same detailed hallucination is extremely rare. Possible, technically, but unlikely. And again, it doesn't explain where Travis went. So, what's left for us? Unresolved points. Because here's the thing, no theory explains everything. If it was real, why did Travis fail the first polygraph? Why did the family seem to expect this to happen? Why did Mike Rogers confess in 2021, even though he later retracted his statement? If it was a hoax, Where was Travis for 5 days? Who hid him? Why would the other 5 men, who had nothing to gain personally, maintain the lie for 50 years? How do you explain the anomalies in the tree stumps discovered in 2014? Why did someone apparently destroy that evidence of the trees in 2021? And there's something else I find fascinating. Tracy Torme, the screenwriter who researched this case extensively, said something interesting. I don't think Travis's case is a typical abduction case. It doesn't fit any of the other patterns. So many witnesses, missing for 5 days. All of those things break the mold and make this case unique. Only. That's a good word for it. Because it is. Regardless of what actually happened in that forest, the impact of the Travis Walton case is undeniable. In 1993, the story was adapted into a film called Fire in the Sky, starring D.B. Sweeney and Robert Patrick. The film took massive creative liberties, especially with the abduction scenes, which were dramatized to be far more terrifying than Travis's account. But it introduced the case to millions of people. Netflix called it the best-known and probably best-documented case of abduction in the history of the UFO phenomenon. It has been featured in countless documentaries, television shows, and podcasts. The payphone where Travis reappeared has become a tourist attraction, decorated with alien art. Pause. Travis himself has become a public figure. He gives talks. He appears at conventions. He organizes his own UFO conference in Arizona, the Skyfire Summit. In 2021, he appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast. In 2023, on the HBO show How to with John Wilson. And on November 5, 2025, exactly 50 years after the incident, a new documentary premiered at the Sedona International Film Festival, Travis, the True Story of Travis Walton. 50 years. And history lives on. It is still being debated, researched,
Discussed.
The other witnesses have kept a lower profile, but most continue to support the story. In 1993, Walton, Rogers, and Dallas were subjected to polygraph examinations again. They passed them. But Sheriff Marlin Gillespie, who originally investigated the case, said to his dying day that he felt police had been framed. I'd love to get the real story someday, he said. Maybe we'll never get it. So, what conclusion do we draw from all this? Honestly, after immersing myself in this case for weeks, reviewing every document, every testimony, every skeptical analysis, and every impassioned defense, I don't have a definitive answer. And I think that's appropriate. Because what fascinates me about this case is not necessarily what happened. It's that after 50 years, with all our technology, with all our researchers, with all our skepticism and all our desire to believe, we still can't agree. If it was a hoax, it was extraordinarily well executed. 7 men maintained a consistent story for half a century. They passed multiple polygraph tests. They did not gain significant wealth from it. If it was real, well, the implications are profound, aren't they? It would mean we're not alone. That in November 1975, in a remote Arizona forest, something of unknown origin interacted with a human being. He took it. He returned it 5 days later. And then he was gone. What I'm left with from this case is a sense of mystery. Not the cheap, sensationalist kind, but the profound, genuine kind. The kind of mystery that reminds us that, despite everything we know, despite everything we've explored and mapped and explained, there are still things we don't understand. Maybe Travis Walton was abducted by aliens. He was perhaps the perpetrator of one of the most successful hoaxes of the 20th century. Or perhaps, and this is what I find most intriguing, it was something in between. Something that doesn't fit neatly into any of our explanatory boxes. 50 years later, Travis Walton, now 72, still tells the same story. He says he was taken aboard a ship, that he saw beings, that he was somewhere beyond our world. Do we believe him? That's the question each of you will have to answer for yourself. What I can say is this. Something happened on November 5, 1975, in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. 7 men saw something that changed them forever. And one of them disappeared for 5 days. The truth is out there. But maybe we'll never find it. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the mystery is the point. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive into the Travis Walton case. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think it was real? Was it a hoax? Something in between? Leave your theories in the comments. And please keep the conversation respectful. This case has divided people for half a century. We don't need to add to it. If you enjoyed this video, if you appreciated the thorough research and balanced presentation, please give it a like. Share it with someone who enjoys these topics. And if you want more content like this, paranormal cases, unsolved mysteries, in-depth investigations without sensationalism, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. I have several more cases in preparation. Some equally fascinating, equally controversial. Until next time, keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. And remember, the truth is out there. We just have to keep looking.